What if you could book a seat on this state-of-the-art advanced technology airplane, take off vertically from the landing pad next to your office building or a park near your home, and then fly up to 700 miles to your destination, non-stop, door-to-door, point-to-point. No need for an airport, no searching for a parking spot, waiting in security lines, or long walks to the gate. The aviation industry is on the cusp of a revolution in air travel that's so powerful and so profound, it promises to change how we move around from one place to another on an average day. I'm Dave Brody. I've had a passion for science, technology, and for aircraft my whole life. Several years ago, I invented that airplane. It's called the TriFan 600, and I founded XTI Aircraft Company to develop it. We embarked on a mission to solve one major problem in air travel: the need for greater convenience and efficiency in traveling long distance by air. In March 2024, we became a publicly traded company on NASDAQ under the name XTI Aerospace and the symbol XTIA. And now, XTI Aerospace and the TriFan 600 airplane are at the center of this impending revolution. Other new types of vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or VTOL, VTOL aircraft, being developed that are not helicopters include all-electric air taxis, called eVTOL aircraft, and cargo drones. The world is about to enter an incredible new era of flight for all of us. The TriFan 600 and some of these other VTOL aircraft will start to become woven into our daily lives over the next few years, and surely before the end of this decade. Billions of dollars have been invested in the eVTOL companies just over the last 5 years. Some of them are testing their flying prototypes, and many of them are in the FAA pipeline applying for certification. As for the TriFan, we expect our flight tests to begin in 2027. I'll explain this more later, but the TriFan is fundamentally different from the electric air taxis, and we won't be competing with them because we're in a class by ourselves. The TriFan is a vertical lift crossover airplane, a fast and long-range VTOL airplane up to 700 miles non-stop, much different than the eVTOLs. Our mission is to build an aircraft that takes off and lands vertically so you can fly door to door, but also flies fast and has a long range. People around the world who own a TriFan or who book a seat on a TriFan will have a choice that's never been available to anyone in aviation history, no matter how much money they have, no matter how many aircraft they personally own. It's a choice about how you want to travel long distance, not short hops in an air taxi or a helicopter, but up to 700 miles non-stop and door-to-door from one landing pad to another. Now, what's the market demand for the TriFan 600? The convenience and time savings of the TriFan explains how and why we've already booked over $7 billion worth of conditional pre-orders for the TriFan so far. That's the amount of gross revenues that XTI will realize upon delivery of those aircraft. Over 700 conditional pre-orders at our base price of $10 million per airplane from customers on 5 continents around the world, a combination of binding contracts and non-binding reservations. Some of you have ridden in a helicopter. The helicopter is a unique machine. No other type of aircraft can hover for as long as a helicopter. Helicopters fly executives and politicians point to point, and they ferry sightseers flying over cities. They've rescued thousands of people, and helicopters move troops and serve as medevac aircraft. But the helicopter is slow and noisy. Passengers have to wear headphones to block the noise and to communicate with each other. The average cruise speed is only about 120 miles an hour. Most cars can exceed that on a racetrack. The average helicopter also has a shorter range than any car or truck, about 200 miles before it has to land and refuel. And they're very expensive to operate because of the large, complex rotor system. Private jets and other business airplanes, on the other hand, are much faster, quieter, smoother, and more comfortable than a helicopter, and you don't need to wear headphones. But of course, with airplanes, you need an airport, or at least a runway, instead of a landing pad or a small patch of ground. So why is that so important? When you add up the time driving to and from an airport, parking, security lines, the walk to your gate at the airport, and the flight itself, that's total trip time. Comparing total trip time for a trip of 700 miles or less with the TriFan against any other airplane, a private jet or a commercial airline flight or a turboprop, taking the TriFan is almost always faster. So it's not surprising that over the past 80 years, many innovators and aerospace engineers tried to develop variations of the helicopter and variations of fixed-wing airplanes that combine the best of both worlds, vertical takeoff and landing combined with speed and range. Now, the US military had some success with these Army projects in the 1960s, and you've probably seen the vertical takeoff and landing British Harrier fighter jet, the US F-35B fighter jet that's also vertical takeoff and landing, and the Marines V-22 Osprey tilt rotor. These are very large, heavy, and extremely expensive aircraft, multi-billion-dollar military programs. This worked for the military, but none of the civilian ideas for vertical fast and far aircraft has ever performed well enough to be commercially produced in the civilian aircraft market anywhere in the world. At XTI, we are changing that. We're developing a civilian vertical fast and far aircraft that people have been trying to create for decades. One that doesn't need an airport or a runway and can fly at high speed and long range. This was made possible over recent years by technological advances, increased power and reduced weight of jet engines, lighter materials such as carbon fiber, tremendous advances in computerized flight controls, avionics, and other technologies, combined with the innovation at XTI. Now, how did the TriFan come about? Well, before I started XTI, I invented an advanced technology civilian helicopter designed to fly faster than any other helicopter, and I founded a different company, AVX Aircraft Company, based in Fort Worth, Texas. The idea for the TriFan originated with these large rear ducted fans we designed for the AVX helicopter that you see here in this computer-generated image, to give it additional speed. AVX changed its strategy and became a military defense contractor and has competed in some of the US military's largest aircraft programs over the past 10 years. That ducted fan technology on the AVX helicopter gave me the idea for a fixed-wing civilian airplane, not a helicopter, but a faster fixed-wing airplane that would not only use the fans for forward flight, it would also rotate or transition those ducts and fans for vertical takeoff and landing. So I formed XTI Aircraft Company and began to develop the TriFan as the solution to point-to-point faster and long-distance air travel. So how does the TriFan 600 work? What's the technology? I'm here at XTI Aerospace's offices near Denver, Colorado, with our 1/3 scale model that we display at trade shows and conferences. In this position, the ducted fans are in vertical takeoff and landing mode. Then after takeoff, they are transitioned to forward flight like this. And that process is reversed when the airplane lands. This is a top view image of the TriFan looking down from above it. The 3 sets of ducted propellers or fans provide vertical takeoff and landing capability, and once you're off the ground, the wing fans rotate for forward flight, reaching up to 345 miles an hour. That's more than twice the speed of the average conventional helicopter, and a range of 700 miles, 3 times the range of a helicopter. The fan in the rear part of the fuselage is there for thrust and control in vertical takeoff and landing, but isn't needed for forward flight. So once the wings provide all the lift in forward flight, right after takeoff, the rear fan shuts down and is covered on the top and the bottom to eliminate drag. From the time I formed XTI, specific performance requirements have guided our development of the TriFan. A fixed-wing airplane that takes off and lands vertically, accommodates 1 pilot and up to 6 passengers, an airplane that will reach a speed of about 350 miles an hour and have a range of about 700 miles, powered by 2 certified turbine engines, and is quiet and comfortable, cruising at 25,000 feet with a pressurized cabin, of course, above the weather and turbulence. And importantly, a base price that's competitive with other aircraft of similar size. It's primarily a business aircraft that will be certified for single pilot operation and can carry up to 6 passengers. This is the airplane we plan to bring to the market before the end of this decade. We evaluated hybrid electric propulsion, but we found that battery technology hasn't sufficiently matured to meet these critical performance goals demanded by our customers in the business aircraft market. Our turbine engines are designed to run on green 100% sustainable aviation fuel, which we plan to use. And in our phased approach, we'll continue to monitor other green technologies and incorporate them if and when the technology has sufficiently advanced. Almost all the components of the TriFan are proven technology that XTI did not invent. Certified engines, ducted fans, proven avionics, the wings and the fuselage of the airplane itself. Using these proven components, however, de-risks FAA certification. Yet at the same time, we've put these proven components together in such a unique configuration that we've obtained patent protection on the TriFan in the United States and in these other countries. These are patents which prove the TriFan's uniqueness, a basic requirement for receiving a patent for any invention. Now, I'd love to talk about our exceptional leadership at XTI Aerospace. In 2021, we expanded our engineering team and further advanced the technical development of the TriFan. We also have a dedicated and exceptional management team of industry veterans and an experienced board of directors at XTI Aerospace. I want to highlight just a couple of our people. In 2022, I asked Scott Pomeroy to join the company and lead our effort to merge with a publicly traded company, and then to take over as chairman and CEO when we closed that merger, which took place in March 2024. Scott and I have served together on the AVX Aircraft Company board since 2009. So before I even asked him to lead XTI Aerospace, I was already very familiar with his skills and knowledge of financing and his history as CEO and CFO of public and private companies over the past few decades, including his track record of successfully restructuring and leading the financing strategy of companies, including multi-billion-dollar transactions. Scott is brilliant, strategic, and fearless, 3 qualities needed by any company that's trying to change the world. He's also great with people and committed to excellence and to XTI's success. Charlie Johnson is currently XTI's special advisor to the CEO. Charlie is a member of the Living Legends of Aviation, and in the 1990s and early 2000s, he played a pivotal role as president and COO of Cessna, the world's leading business aircraft manufacturer. Part of Charlie's life story is already told in this book, The Legend of Cessna. He directly managed FAA certification of over 35 different new Cessna aircraft models during his tenure there. After retiring from Cessna, Charlie joined the XTI board of directors soon after I formed the company in 2014, and he's also served as XTI's CEO and COO. With his decades of experience as a senior executive with Cessna and as a pilot, he knows every square inch of an airplane, how it's designed and manufactured, how it operates, and how to secure its certification. He's an extremely valuable member of the XTI Aerospace organization, and like Scott, a person I respect, admire, and trust. Based on the promise of the TriFan itself and what it will mean to aviation, in addition to Scott and Charlie, we've attracted several other world-class leaders in the aviation industry. Now, what's the status of XTI's development program? In 2019 and 20, we conducted a series of successful hover tests with our 2/3 scale unmanned prototype. We're now focused on lining up our Tier 1 suppliers for our full-scale piloted test aircraft number 1, with that first flight scheduled for 2027. We've developed our FAA certification plan, and we're in communication with the FAA on a regular basis as that process continues. This is the air medical configuration of the TriFan for our medevac customers. The airplane will save many lives every year because it will deliver patients, organs, and blood directly to hospital helipads faster than any helicopter and over greater distances. The medevac version of the TriFan will largely eliminate the need for an ambulance and a jet at airports in many emergency medevac situations. Now, where will the TriFan take you? What does a 700-mile range look like? Door-to-door transportation in a TriFan. Here are some examples that put this in perspective. Here's a range map showing a 700-mile radius centered in New York City. This is a circle that covers 20 states, Washington, D.C., and a large portion of Canada, including Montreal and Toronto. There are over 136 million people living within this one circle. Here's another one showing how far a 700-mile reach means to people traveling to or from Chicago. Here's another example centered in Dallas, one from LA, and one more from Paris that covers most of Europe, over 200 million people within that circle. Non-stop, door-to-door, most VTOL aircraft can use the existing network of over 5,000 helipads in the US alone, and there are thousands of job sites, parks, and other grassy or paved spots, golf courses, and other landing areas that are available in the US and all over the world. Using a landing pad or other small landing area near your takeoff spot and near your final destination, around 60 to 80 feet in diameter. I'm talking about anywhere that's safe and legal. People will be able to take off and land in a TriFan and travel up to 700 miles. For example, between Philly and Chicago, Boston and Washington, D.C., Dallas and Denver, Houston and Atlanta, San Diego and San Francisco, and between San Francisco and Seattle. Connecting urban centers like these, as well as remote communities, moving people point to point in rural locations, a fishing trip, or flying directly to a cabin in the mountains where there are no airports or runways for hundreds of miles. Just imagine the possibilities. We have a wide range of existing and potential customers for the TriFan. Individuals, corporate flight departments, FAA licensed air carriers who offer charter services, medevac operators such as hospitals, as well as regional airline carriers and government customers such as state and municipal police forces. Most of our customers will be individual and corporate owners of business aircraft and FAA licensed fleet operators, which, as I said, offer charters and other private non-scheduled air transportation services. But all our customers will have this in common: exceptional point-to-point convenience, tremendous savings of time, and reduced operating costs for the owners and operators of a TriFan compared to other aircraft of similar size. When you consider total trip time, flight time plus the additional steps and time it takes to drive to and from an airport on the ground, find a parking place, walk to the airport and the gate, wait in line, you'll save hours on most flights. And for people who travel more frequently on business or pleasure, they'll save hundreds of hours a year. Here are two examples of the time savings I'm talking about. Total trip time, door to door, in a TriFan versus a commercial airline flight. Downtown LA to downtown San Francisco, that's 350 miles. And the time savings in a TriFan would be over 4 hours in the total trip time. Downtown Philly to downtown Chicago, that's 665 miles, and the time savings would be over 3 hours. In addition to the existing helipad network, there are many new landing pads or vertiports currently being planned by cities and by private companies for the short-range electric air taxis to use, like Vertiport Chicago, which already exists near downtown Chicago. Imagine avoiding all this traffic and arranging to be picked up at a designated pickup spot, similar to getting on your phone to call an Uber, and instead of stepping into a Toyota, you step into a TriFan. Instead of a 10-mile trip across town, it's a trip up to 700 miles. Now, what is the competition and the existing market for the TriFan? This is hard to fathom, but there are literally hundreds of companies around the world that are in various stages of development in their efforts to design, manufacture, and sell all-electric short-range air taxis. Again, these are small vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that will provide air taxi services mostly in urban areas. They're called eVTOL, with the E standing for electric because they're battery powered. Since they run on batteries and it takes much more power to operate an electric aircraft than an electric automobile, the eVTOL aircraft don't have the range or speed of a car or a helicopter, and certainly not the range or speed that the TriFan will have. They're designed to accomplish one mission, to take 2 or 3 people on a short air taxi ride. As a result, all these companies are competing with each other, and XTI is not competing with any of them. Fortunately, instead, XTI is in the business aircraft market that includes about 60,000 aircraft worldwide. That's the market in which the TriFan will operate and compete. That includes business jets, helicopters, and other business aircraft, including many comparable in size to the TriFan, that is, up to 9 seats, which is a separate category under FAA regulations. I say it's fortunate because no aircraft in existence or in development combines vertical takeoff and landing with the TriFan speed and range, except the AgustaWestland 609. That's a tilt rotor projected to cost more than twice as much as the TriFan and won't fly as fast as the TriFan. If XTI captures only 2% of this market of 60,000 business aircraft, it's about 1,200 aircraft. In the years following FAA certification of the TriFan, that would translate into $12 billion in gross revenues that XTI would receive upon delivery of those aircraft. Regarding the valuation of XTI Aerospace, before we closed the merger with Inpiction in March of 2024, Inpiction hired an independent consultant, Gemini Valuation Services, to provide an opinion on XTI Aircraft Company's value. It's called a fairness opinion. It's common with mergers and other transactions and is an extensive analysis intended to make sure the merger would be fair to Inpiction's shareholders from a financial viewpoint. Gemini concluded that the enterprise value of XTI Aircraft Company at the time of the report was between $253 million and $343 million. Gemini's full opinion on the valuation of XTI is provided as part of our filings with the SEC that we submitted in October 2023 and is available for anyone to read, including the risks for anyone who invests in XTI Aerospace. It's all described in the company's public statements and filings, and I encourage you to review the fairness opinion and all other public filings. I've given you a lot to digest. Let me leave you with this. The urban population of the world will double by the year 2050, adding 3 billion people to already crowded cities. The global demand for more convenient and efficient air transportation will continue to accelerate over the next several years. As it becomes increasingly difficult to travel on the ground in scores of densely crowded cities around the world and to travel to and from most airports, we think XTI Aerospace is well positioned to transform and revolutionize air travel with the TriFan 600. Of all of humankind's inventions and innovations, none captures our imagination and fuels our passion more than an airplane. By embracing existing technology and applying it to a vision of our lives in the 21st century, XTI Aerospace is working to create a new standard for air transportation. Unprecedented convenience for the business community and for anyone else who has an opportunity to fly in a TriFan. Our goal here at XTI is to make the TriFan 600 the ultimate civilian fixed-wing vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for the 21st century. So please go to the XTI Aerospace website and sign up for alerts and upcoming events and join us on this journey. We expect to achieve major milestones over the next few years, with one of the most important and exciting ones being when we test our first full-scale piloted prototype. As I mentioned, that's planned for 2027. A transformational event for XTI Aerospace, and we think the future of air travel. Become a part of this story of people traveling in a vertical fast and far aircraft for the first time in history. This vision that's now within reach as we shape the future of aviation.